tonight.
Why would you let a fire go that's close to a community until it becomes a huge problem?
A First Nation in Saskatchewan is accusing the provincial government of letting a fire get out of control, prompting evacuations. City staff are asked how to figure out how to pay for an $85 million increase to the budget for Regina's new Aquatic Centre. A Saskatchewan artist tells us why she's featuring cow poop in her upcoming exhibit.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, August 14th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. Hundreds of people in northern Saskatchewan are under an evacuation order. A wildfire is moving towards Sandy Bay, and the smoke is making for unbearable conditions. Jason Warwick has more from Prince Albert.
See that fire? Look at it, flared up big time.
As raging forest fires threaten the northern Saskatchewan community of Sandy Bay,
See fire there too?
Elder Evelyn McDonald was evacuated Tuesday from her home in the Northern Reserve.
I went for a walk and I took pictures. I seen a lot of smoke. Oh, it's sort of anxiety. I panicked.
The community is included under the umbrella of Ballantyne Cree Nation. Evacuees say the flames were getting closer just before they left, and the smoke made it difficult for them to breathe. They're staying in hotels in Prince Albert and other cities. The elderly and vulnerable were taken out first. Dozens of other people are expected to join them this week.
I'm worried about my grandchildren. Some of my kids are still back home, but they'll be in today, I hope.
The elders tell me they have everything they need here in Prince Albert, but they'd much rather be at home. The chief of the Ballantyne Cree Nation says it didn't have to be this way. He says that the provincial government refused to mobilize First Nations firefighters when the flames were lower several weeks ago, and as a result, the fire has gotten out of control.
And yet we have hundreds of firefighters. Lac La Ronge has firefighters. Ballantyne has firefighters. Montreal Lake, all the Woodland Cree. We have the Northern Dene. They have very well-trained firefighters as well, experienced firefighters that could be utilized. I just can't figure it out. Like, why would you let a fire go that's close to a community until it becomes a huge problem and then try and manage it? At that point, it's unmanageable.
Right now, the wildfire covers an area of roughly 130 square kilometers. That's roughly double the size of the city of Prince Albert. No one from the provincial government was made available for an interview, but in a statement, they say that they're monitoring the situation and will take any necessary measures. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Prince Albert.
Sandy Bay is not the only community affected by fires and smoke in our province, and our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now. Ethan, where is it the worst?
Well, we are seeing air quality advisories, Sam, all throughout the north, but now extending through the northern grain belt and even as far south as the Kindersley-Rosetown area, and likely going to be extended further south through the night tonight and into tomorrow. A cold front bringing all this smoke down into Saskatoon and Prince Albert areas overnight tonight, throughout the rest of Regina and southern Saskatchewan as we get through the day tomorrow and into Friday. Not great for, of course, the Rider game, which is on Friday evening. In terms of the fire at Sandy Bay, we are seeing some spotty showers and thunderstorms this evening. But other than that, things are going to remain fairly dry over the next few days here. Now, there are some good things that we are looking in terms of this fire. The temperature, 26 degrees tomorrow, so it's not overly hot in that area. We're not looking, though, at much of a chance of any rainfall, but relative humidity at 45%. Keeps that above that critical 30% level. Below that, it's pretty dry and fires can start easier. But the other good thing is that the winds are staying light. The only thing, though, Sam, is that those winds are blowing from the northwest, and that fire, of course, is to the northwest of the community. So that means that it will be blowing still towards Sandy Bay, so something we'll be watching in the coming days.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Ethan will have more on what's going on in weather in a few minutes. Regina's new urgent care centre has been running for 6 weeks now, and the SHA says it's taken some pressure off of Regina's 2 emergency rooms. The health authority says since the centre opened July 2nd, more than 4,400 patients have been seen. That's an average of 107 people a day. Most have been there for urgent but not life-threatening issues, things like abdominal pain, cough and congestion, stitches, broken bones, and mental health.
Wait times in general are always going to be fluctuating in an area like an emergency department or an urgent care centre. First of all, based on just the sheer number of patients that are presenting, which is going to ebb and flow and go up and down kind of every hour of the day, and also in how sick or how acute patients who are there are presenting.
The SHA says wait times at urgent care have generally been between 1 to 2 hours, but some people do wait longer, depending on the urgency of their case. As for staffing, the health authority says it's still working to recruit doctors. Their goal is to have it open 24/7 sometime this fall. The father of a child cancer patient in Saskatoon is fuming about smoking on the grounds of the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital. James McCrimmon visits his little boy daily in the ICU, and he's upset the health authority is not enforcing its own no smoking policy.
This is what it looks like at the children's entrance, Jim Pattison. Clearly no smoking, littered with filth and disgust. It's quite appalling, honestly. It says right there on their signs that they're smoke-free grounds, and security and the health authority just do nothing about it. My son was diagnosed with leukemia last April. So we've been fighting this battle for about 17 months with him, and we've spent, I would say, 80% of that time in this hospital. So it's a home away from home for us. The children's entrance to the hospital is where all the oncology kids come. Newborn babies take their first breath of fresh air out those doors. And ultimately the adults from the adult side of the hospital and their visitors decide to make their way to the children's entrance and smoke right in front of the non-smoking signs, right at the entrance to the door, so the smoke goes into the building. Anywhere from 10 to 20 different individuals out there smoking cigarettes. There's just a lack of empathy, compassion for the children, and it's just disrespectful on so many levels that we just need to deal with it. And I've spoken to numerous families, but they're fighting their own battles. So I'm just looking for maybe a designated smoking area or a security desk set up there to just guide people away from the children's entrance, you know. I'm not saying it's kind of unrealistic to think you need to move them completely, you know, thousands of feet off ground, but find somewhere else, you know, just not the children's entrance.
The SHA declined an interview, but in a statement said security staff do regularly enforce the no smoking policy. People living in High Park Towers in Moose Jaw say a cockroach infestation they've been living with since November is now worse. Video showing cockroaches scattering across a suite floor. Residents, who are mostly seniors, want this dealt with. One resident says when he went to the legislature in November, his suite was insect-free at that time, but 2 months ago, they creeped in to his place. Now he does not want his family to see how he lives.
I have 4 kids. I have 13 grandchildren. My kids don't come and visit, nor does my grandkids. I mentioned that, and I was told, well, have them meet you somewhere else. That's my home. I pay rent there. That's my home. But yet, have your kids meet you somewhere else. Have your grandkids meet you somewhere else, but not in your home. That plays hell on a person.
The low-income housing complex has 10 floors with 160 suites. Most of the residents cannot afford to move. The Ministry of Social Services says they are working with pest control, and treatment is scheduled for today. Convicted killer Greg Furtuck is taking his case to the province's highest court. Furtuck was convicted of first-degree murder in June. He was charged with killing his wife Sherry in 2015. That's when the Saskatoon mother of 3 disappeared. Furtuck is appealing the conviction. He says Justice Richard Daniluk didn't properly consider the evidence, and that Justice Daniluk only listened to the Crown's argument. Furtuck wants a new trial with a judge and jury. Furtuck's conviction came with an automatic life sentence with no parole for 25 years. Given time served, he could apply for parole at 90 years old. Regina's new aquatic center is facing a ballooning cost to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. Alexander Kwan brings us the latest.
$245 million. That's the latest cost estimate for Regina's new aquatic center. It's also $85 million more than what was originally budgeted for the project. This afternoon, Regina's executive committee approved a plan to continue with the project as is, but it wasn't without some hesitation.
The worry, I think, is where does it end?
There has been a decade-long effort to build a new indoor pool in Regina that would replace the Lawson. Mayor Sandra Masters even made it a core campaign promise in 2020. Advocates say the Queen City has not kept pace with demand.
Do you want a facility that will just service us when it opens in 2028, or do you want a facility that will provide room for growth for the next 40 to 50 years?
Construction was approved last year at $160 million. The province and Ottawa have also committed partial funding, but inflation and a better understanding of the project have made the cost balloon. The city is now responsible for an amount equal to the original project. The mayor says she'll spend the next few weeks asking for more help.
I don't think anyone around this horseshoe doesn't know how difficult it is to raise taxes or to postpone projects, but the reality is that I don't want to borrow $150 million.
The cost-conscious committee was asked to choose between increasing the budget or reducing the scope of the project, but they chose a third option. The committee wants more information. They've asked city staff to come up with a plan for how the city could pay for the increase. And once they have that answer, they'll decide in October. One city councillor found that hard to accept.
I just think we have to be careful in Regina not to always settle for second best. When we reach for the stars, we do really well. When we dither, we just put our community behind.
The delay means this won't come back until council's final meeting before the November municipal election. Shovels aren't set to go into the ground until sometime next year, but city staff have warned that any further delays could mean an even higher cost. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Meanwhile, in Saskatoon, the city has started the upgrades to the Harry Bailey Aquatic Center. Construction officially began on Monday. Built in 1975, many components were nearing the end of their functional life, so there will be upgrades to accessibility, the 50-meter pool basin, change rooms, the water treatment and mechanical system, and to the roof. The city's planning to fully reopen the facility in late spring of 2026. Papikas's First Nation is finalizing plans to build its own culturally sensitive funeral home. This shows the exterior of a funeral home with a sacred fire outside. The plan is for construction to start next spring. The headman says some funeral providers operating in the area don't allow traditional protocols and charge extra for wakes.
We're tired of getting monopolized by other companies, that we have to do it their way and their costs their way. So we look at it that we're going to set our own costs to help our people out, because that's a big cost when it comes to when a person passes, that the family is injected with a huge bill after.
With this funeral home, we really want to cater to First Nation, values and traditions and that. But that being said, we don't only just want to, have First Nation people coming to use our facility. We're really open to, all cultures and religions and denominations to come and use our facility, as they come and say goodbye to their loved ones.
The new funeral home will employ up to 15 staff, and the building will hold 400 people, so the First Nation will not have to hold services in the school gym. A nice day to spend on the river in Saskatoon. The sun returned after the showers we experienced overnight and this morning, but Ethan will have a smoky forecast for you when we come back. When Jamie Reynolds started taking pictures of cow manure, she did not plan on opening an art exhibit inspired by it, but that's what she's doing, and sharing knowledge too.
The show is tentatively, hopefully, titled Bullshit. It's a series of paintings I did of cow poop that I photographed in the provincial and national parks here in Saskatchewan. So this is one of my favorites. I really like this one because, I don't know, it sounds really gross, but it's a little juicy. And it had just rained, so it's glistening. And it was really just fun to, it was just really fun to paint. This project originally started a couple of years ago. I took my kids out to Grasslands National Park, which is like down in the southeast corner of Saskatchewan. Just to do some like hiking and biking and stuff for a weekend. And while we were out there, just kind of biking around, I saw all these cows all over the park. And as we were like walking around, there's also like cow poop everywhere. And so my daughter thought it would be like funny to start taking pictures of them. Cows in Grasslands Park were there as part of a pilot project where they were allowing nearby ranchers to graze in the park. The more I started learning about the parks and the history and the way that the ranchers used the lands and the history of the use of crown lands in general, the more I started to feel like this is bullshit. So the idea was to go to the parks and photograph the cow shit that I found on the land, to use it as a way to talk about the history that I learned and to talk about the different ways that the land is being affected by these animals. And the reason why I chose to focus on the poop is because, for one, it's funny, but it's also like a really good metaphor or example of my feelings towards everything I've sort of learned. What I'm really hoping is that people will kind of ask why, question the way that we use the land, and I guess how we have a responsibility to make sure that it's being used in the best way possible. I tried to highlight it in a very dramatic way. Like, I really wanted to play with that contrast between what we really think about it, but also what it can be. So just sitting there and like painting it a couple of times, I was like, whoa. And after staring at it for so long, yeah, I've kind of become immune to it.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Employee pricing is on now.
Well, there's all kinds of puns we can use there, but instead I'm just going to ask about the smoke that's coming, Ethan. I feel like I'd step in it.
You know, I didn't know I could now say certain words on the air that I wasn't able to say a few minutes ago.
Can't.
There's
Can't.
no. You think I should stay away from?
Please
okay.
don't.
All
Don't
right.
step in it.
Well, that's right. Don't want to step in. Anyway, the weather feeling a little. Well, anyway, I'll ignore that word altogether. We had some rain overnight last night from some storms around the Regina area. We had some real loud rumbles of thunder at times in Regina. Only picked up around 5 millimeters of rain, but it was around the city where that heavier rain was. And Vibank, nearly 40 millimeters in just the span of a few hours. Up near Craven, around 10 millimeters more than that in some spots. The active weather continuing today. We have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect around the Nipawin and Tisdale and Carrot River areas right now. And then just to the east of Wynyard, kind of along toward the Kenora area, eventually these storms kind of moving to the east-southeast. You see we have that severe thunderstorm watch outlined in yellow there for the kind of larger area around that, including Kamsack and Kenora and Wynyard, and even throughout northern Saskatchewan, some showers and thunderstorms popping up, those staying non-severe. But again, another warm one near 30 degrees for many of us in the southern half of the province today, and temperatures starting to come down in the north where we're seeing that cold front starting to move through. That's bringing that smoke down, as I mentioned a little earlier, and you can see already those northwesterly winds beginning to pick up. That's why the smoke is moving into west central Saskatchewan. Winds won't be overly strong, but again, probably by tomorrow and by Friday, they'll pull that smoke in throughout the rest of the province. Other than that, we're going to be seeing high pressure move in, so things staying mostly dry, sunny outside of the smoke, if you can see the smoke, or the sun rather, through all the smoke, and the temperatures that probably staying fairly warm as well. A next shot at moisture comes from this area of low pressure early Saturday morning. That kind of looking to stay more to the north at this point. So we'll see if northern Saskatchewan can pick up some much needed rainfall from that. In the meantime, Regina, hot and smoky tomorrow. Rider game Friday. I got the sun on there for now, but it's probably going to be smoky again. Temperatures come down a little bit for the weekend, but still nice and seasonal. And then with the possibility of some showers and storms Monday, that's really going to crank up the humidity for Tuesday, Wednesday. Could be feeling into the mid-30s again as we approach the latter half of August here. Saskatoon, again, similar smoky conditions over these next couple of days. And then a very similar forecast as we stay seasonal with the occasional shower and thunderstorm, but mostly clear with some fairly nice overnight lows. But unfortunately, Sam, I'm going to be contending with that smoke here.
Well, that's crappy.
Need I say any more than that, right?
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Stay with us. We have more news after the break. With the housing crisis, there are some new and creative ways to pay for affordable housing. One way gaining popularity in big cities and small towns is community bonds. Paula Duhachik explains.
Kim Switzer loves living in Lake Country, but with competition from cottagers and Airbnbs, trying to find an affordable place to live is tough.
In this community in particular, the poverty rate is pretty high. We don't have enough housing. We need it.
From her deck, Faye Martin helps lead the local nonprofit Places for People. It's trying to create more housing and financing some of it with community bonds.
We managed to raise $850,000 in 9 weeks, which astonished everybody.
In selling community bonds, the nonprofit asks supporters to invest with them for a set period of time. It will eventually have to pay the money back using funds it collects from rent and fundraising, plus interest, but at a better rate than it would expect from a traditional bank.
And that can be instrumental in getting an affordable housing project off the ground and also ensuring that there's a lot of affordable units.
The model is fairly new but gaining traction, including in cities like Toronto. This week, 11 more housing providers from across the country announced they plan to sell community bonds to build or preserve affordable housing.
People are looking for ethical alternatives to place their money. At the same time, organizations are looking for ways that they can tap into new sources of funding other than grants and donations.
Still, community bonds don't get the same oversight as regular bonds. That's why experts say investors need to do their homework.
They want to make sure that there's some source of cash flow that will be able to pay back in that period of time that you're lending the money.
As for Kim Switzer, she's glad nonprofits are coming up with new ideas to pay for housing.
Try every avenue, because it's so needed. It's needed all over the place.
She hopes this idea takes off. Paula Duhachek, CBC News, Calgary.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
And for Regina, I think we'll start to see maybe a little bit of some hazy skies this evening, but otherwise mostly clear. I think it's tomorrow morning when we're going to start to see a little bit of that forest fire smoke moving in. Otherwise, sunny skies. Temperature doesn't move all that much, but then by the noon hour, that's when that smoke begins moving in. 27 degrees, those northwest winds picking up a bit, bringing in that smoke. Saskatoon will likely already be hazy by the midnight hour tonight, and similar temperatures for tomorrow. Lots of smoke by 8 a.m. continuing through the day and probably the day after as well, but a temperature of 26 degrees. Mostly sunny skies, Sam, of course, if you can see the sun through all that smoke.
Okay, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
And that is it for us tonight. For news at any time, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/sask. You can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app on your phone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.